topic to discuss as always. We're live on all our most of our social media platforms. Welcome Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. Oh gosh, TikTok, Instagram, and everyone settle in. And if you guys can hear me and see me well, please drop USA in the comment section. Type USA, or you can drop the flag of the United States of America in the chat section. We have a lot to discuss. Drop USA if you can hear me well, please drop it regardless of which platform you're on. Please drop USA and let's make sure everyone can hear us. Okay, it looks like Instagram can hear me well. I'm not sure about Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. If you all can hear me, please drop that in. TikTok, let me see if you guys can hear me. Drop USA, USA. It looks like it's just Instagram that can hear me. Nowhere else. Okay, we'll be sharing our screen to discuss. So today we have a lot to discuss. We'll be discussing a lot of US immigration updates and what's going on, what you should know. We don't have too much time, but we'll do our best to discuss what we need to discuss within the short time that we have. Please drop USA in the chat box if you can hear me really well on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. I have the signal from Instagram. Yes, you can drop USA, yes, and you're free to drop the name of the country where you are connecting from as well. Okay. All right, let's get started. Let me share my screen. Let's just go straight into sharing my screen here. Okay, let's get started. Okay, there we have it. So I'm sure you guys have many of you have heard about everything going on. There is a travel ban that has been released. Let's go over a couple of details concerning the travel ban, and then we'll move on to courthouse arrests. We'll move on to visa overstay discussions, and then a few other things you should know about. Okay, so please stay tuned, stick with us, and let's review this together. President Trump banned on Monday 19 countries. He issued a travel ban. Travel ban meaning that the people from those countries are not welcome to the United States. They cannot enter the United States, are not allowed to enter the United States. And this is based on Executive Order 141/61, protecting the United States from foreign terrorists and other national security and public safety threats. Okay. Now, this action is based on the Immigration and Nationality Act, Section 212F, which talks about the fact that the president has power to suspend the entry, or he can impose restrictions if the entry of a particular group of people would be detrimental or negative to the United States. That's the Section 212F of the Immigration and Nationality Act. All right, now let's jump into the reason for the ban. We'll look at the countries, and then I can tell you some very interesting things about this proclamation. Okay, all right. See, Trump, he's very interesting. He's given the basis for the ban right there in the proclamation, and he says that the ban has been given so that those people who are willing to cooperate, they can cooperate, and then the government can either modify the restrictions or undo the restrictions. So there's a second opportunity. We'll get to that at the end of the discussion. It's at the end of the proclamation, this 20-page Proclamation, but pretty much he's saying he wants to engage with countries willing to cooperate and improve information sharing. The problem that he has with many of the countries that have been banned is a lack of information sharing. There is no identity, or there's reduced identity management procedures. And I'm going to share a picture from Interpol that I got, you guys, and I'll explain what that picture does. I will show you realistically what kind of information sharing the US government is looking at. What are they interested in to be comfortable with allowing the nationals of countries to enter the United States, okay? All right, so let's come here. So nationals of these countries, the ban was imposed because of visa overstays. Visa overstays, they used the visa overstay report of DHS 2023-2022. I pulled that visa overstay report out. We'll look at it very briefly. And I compared some of the percentages of the visa overstays for certain countries who have not been banned to the countries that have been banned. To be honest, some of the countries that have been banned or barred from entering the United States, they actually have a lower rate of visa overstays than some countries that have not been barred from entering the United States. And this tells you that the visa overstay rate was not the only factor that impacted the decision making. There were other factors that the officials took into consideration before implementing the ban. So if you come to section 1, it's talking about screening and vetting protocols and procedures with visa adjudications. They are saying the policy of the United States is to prevent or protect its citizens from terrorist attacks and other national security or public safety threats. And as a result, they have to do screening and vetting so that they can adjudicate visas and allow certain people to come into the United States, right? So that's the policy and purpose of this. And because they are allowed to vet and screen, if they have to impose a ban to prevent some people from entering, then they'll do so. Okay, now when it comes to the purpose, again, it's talking about information sharing and identity management protocols, the practices of certain foreign governments, countries around the world. They are important because you see, the thing about the United States is that they are aware that they are not by themselves, they are not an island. They depend on foreign governments to give them information. That people feel like the United States, they have all the information in the world, but they don't. They have access to a lot of information, yes, but they also depend very largely on some of these governments. Now, I'm going to share the image from the Interpol very soon, and we're going to understand what's going on with Trump and his cabinet, or his officials, the problems they have with some countries. Okay, so it says that information and identity management protocols and practices of foreign governments, they are important to the effectiveness of screening and vetting protocols and procedures of the US. So governments around the world, they manage the identity and travel documents of their nationals, right? Your country is the one that will issue you with a passport, with an identity document. Okay, and they also control the circumstances under which they provide information about their nationals to other governments, including information about suspected or known terrorists and criminal information of each person. So, for example, if you are going for an immigrant visa, one of the things that you're required to do is a police report. You need a police background check to show that you're not somebody who has bad character, or do you have any criminal convictions, or what is your criminal background looking like? Okay, so these informations are really crucial to helping the United States adjudicate visa applications. Now, let me share. Okay, I thought I shared. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to share the screen I mentioned to you Okay. I think this is it. Excellent. Okay, I found it right here. Now, this is from Interpol. Okay. Interpol, I'm sure you guys know what Interpol is. International police, I believe. Yeah, they are responsible for a whole lot of things, including keeping a database for lost, stolen passports. Okay, so if your passport is lost or stolen, there's a process to report this stolen passports, because it becomes, you see, if your passport is stolen, it becomes a matter of international concern, because we don't know who is going to pick your passport and then say that they are you and then come into the United States or go into another country to cause harm or do something. Okay, so now when you come to this document I'm sharing with you here from Interpol, the first thing is that a travel document, if it's declared as lost, is done to the local police. You go to your local police, you declare the document is lost. The next thing your police should do is that they should cancel the document. It's considered invalid, right? Because you said it's lost. Nobody knows where it is. The third thing to do is that the details of the lost or stolen police, it should be passed on to Interpol. Interpol has a database called Stolen Lost Travel Documents Database, SLTD. And it contains information on the travel and identity documents that have been reported as stolen, lost, revoked, invalid, all of that. So step number 4, Interpol will then record the document in its SLTD database. Then border officials can screen passenger information directly against the SLTD database. Selected carriers can submit document details through I check it for screening. Boarding is denied and the travel document is seized to prevent its future use. So if you now attempt to travel with a travel document that has been reported in the SLTD database as stolen, you are not going to be allowed to travel, right? But the point of this is, we're going up to point number 4. If a passport or an identity card is declared as stolen or lost, such as a passport, right, that you can use to travel, and you report it, your country has to pass it on to Interpol to put in this database. And so what this proclamation is saying is that there are some of the countries that are failing to do these things. If your country is failing to alert or follow certain procedures concerning identity management, travel documents, you don't manage it properly, then the US government cannot trust your documents or cannot trust what you tell them. The US government wants the ability to be able to trust some of these countries and say, oh, okay, these people, they're reporting and whatnot. Now, we're not going to go into whether banning people from all these countries is the proper thing or not to do. For us, I'm just concerned with, at this time, we are reviewing just to understand some more, and then we can make our own assessment as to whether it's good or it's bad. Okay, it is what it is. So they want to encourage foreign governments to improve information sharing. I just gave you an example, and identity management protocols and practices, and to regularly share their identity and threat information with the immigration screening and vetting systems of the United States. Now let's move on. So what the government did, or the Trump as well as the Secretary of State, they reviewed these factors. The goals, or the various factors they reviewed, were each country's screening and vetting capabilities, information sharing policies. Number 2, country-specific risk factors, such as, do you have significant terrorist presence in your country, your visa overstay rate, your cooperation with accepting back your country's removable nationals. Some of you may already know, when it comes to visa overstay, they're looking at in-country overstay, out-of-country overstay. in-country overstay. Once you are given a period of authorized stay for 2 months and you exceed it for 3 months, and then you continue to stay here. It's been 5 years, your visa has expired, your I-94, I should say, has expired. I'm sorry. And you're still in the United States. That's an in-country overstay because you didn't leave. By the out-of-country overstay, they gave you 2 months, you stayed 4 months, and then you left out-of-country overstay. The rates for some of the countries are very high, but as we said, this was not the only factor that affected which countries got banned. Now, cooperation with accepting, back its removable nationals. You guys remember the South Sudan, which was the first country that chopped a very heavy block from President Trump's government. The entire country was blocked, banned from entering the United States. And you know one distinction between that South Sudan ban and this ban 5.0, which what people call Trump travel ban 5.0. The difference is that with the South Sudan, I'm not sure why, Marco Rubio and his people were so angry, because they even revoked all US visas for South Sudanese. All US visas were revoked, meaning if you had a visa a US visa in your South Sudan passport, it was null and void. But when it comes to this current travel ban, it explicitly says that if you look on section 6 of the Proclamation enforcement, section 6C, it says no immigrant or non-immigrant visa issued before the applicable effective date of this proclamation shall be revoked pursuant to this proclamation. So as for the South Sudanese, they were really angry with them and they revoked everybody's visa. Immigrant, non-immigrant revoked. As of the date, was it Marco Rubio tweeted or posted the thing on Twitter? Okay, now listen, if you don't take back your nationals, your removable nationals, that's one of the pet peeves of the United States. They hate it. They don't like it. And so if your national, let's say your national is from your country is Ghana or Nigeria or Kenya or Japan or whichever country, they are detained by ICE and they are processed for deportation or removal. ICE has a department that has to correspond or communicate with your U.S. embassy in Washington, D.C. And then tell them, the consular section or whatever, they tell your embassy in Washington, D.C., the section responsible for producing travel documents, that we have this person, he's a Ghanaian, he's a Nigerian, we need you to issue a travel document to him so that we can put him on a plane and deport him. Your country's embassy in Washington, D.C., every country has countries around the world, they all have representations in Washington, D.C. Your country will then perform an interview to ascertain and verify that this person that you say is our national is indeed our national. And then if they confirm, then they'll produce a travel document, and then ICE will pick the person up and deport the person on the US government ticket or at US government expense. Now, if you remember the South Sudan issue, they issued a travel document, South Sudan. The guy gets there. South Sudan said, we will not accept him because this man is Congolese, Makila Kintu. And then the US government had to bring this man back at its own expense. They were really annoyed. And so it's an example of showing you cooperation with accepting back its removable nationals. We won't go into the South Sudan. We've recorded several videos on that, so that covers it. But it's an example to show you that if you don't cooperate with the government in accepting back your removable nationals, if you are not fast or don't work speedy enough and try to put roadblocks or hurdles, then it becomes a factor for which your entire country can be penalized. And guys, one of the interesting things about what's going on now is that one immigrant now represents everybody. One immigrant actions can affect everybody in your country. Okay, look at this Egyptian guy, Suleiman, who is allegedly responsible for the Boulder attack. Some people were protesting to, pro-Israel. They were protesting that free Israel. And this man apparently went and put some lit up something like a make-believe bomb, a small bomb, put it in some bottle, and then threw it into the crowd, which was protesting. And it blew up and some people got hurt. About, I believe, 18 people as of now are very hurt. And this man is from Egypt. He had or has a visa overstay. He came in 2022, and now Egypt has even been mentioned in the travel ban, that they are now going to watch Egypt because of the actions of this man. So please, if you are an immigrant, please bear in mind your action affects everybody. Now, not only is Egypt under the radar, visa overstays are also under the radar. One immigrant now represents all. If you are an immigrant, especially if you are undocumented, even if you're a green card holder, remember that you are representing your entire country. You are representing the group of people. So if you are an overstay, you are representing all visa overstayers. Because if there's any problem, then this administration will latch onto that problem and ban, group all those people under that umbrella and take sanctions or try to implement sanctions against them. Okay, so let's move on. Visa overstayers, cooperation with accepting back nationals. We don't have too much time. Okay. Now, there was another interesting thing I wanted to mention to you. Okay. After he reviewed these factors, right? He also, obviously, there was a particular focus on crafting country-specific restrictions, and the approach of trying to do the country-specific restrictions was so that it would encourage cooperation with the subject countries, okay, with each country's, unique circumstances. All right. So the countries that have the full travel ban, I was looking for something I wanted to share with you. There was a portion where, okay, let's talk about this. So the ban, right? The ban covers both immigrant visas and non-immigrant visas. Immigrant visas, if you're coming into the United States to live here permanently, or to, live here forever, work, just be here. You don't plan to go back. You don't have any home abroad. Non-immigrant visas, you're coming temporarily, student, work visa. Now, they're saying that lawful permanent residents, they have more enduring rights than non-immigrants, because lawful permanent residents or green card holders, they are more difficult to remove. Even after national security concerns arise, there's, immigrants, lawful permanent residents, it's more difficult to deport them because you have to take them through a whole lot of due process. Non-immigrants, on the other hand, it's quite much easier to remove them. There was a portion of the proclamation that also said that the government was not going to, okay, I think I've seen it here. The government was not going to share all the basis, or every basis or every factor they use to analyze whether a country should be banned or not, because if they did that, that would be detrimental to the United States. They don't want to reveal all their secrets. Some of the information is what is called classified. It cannot be just revealed, because otherwise, you see, when you give the enemy your strategy, then they know what to expect. So one of the strengths of the US government is keeping classified information. Some of our country governments don't know how to do this. Every information about the government, it will end up on Facebook. Anything that happens in the government, it ends up on Facebook. You see, But America, they have classified information, and there are certain information that nobody has access to apart from the people that should have access to that information. All right, so the 12 countries are Afghanistan in alphabetical order. We have Burma, we have Chad, Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. The restrictions for these 12 countries apply to both the entry of immigrant and non-immigrant visas. Guys, I'm going to take you through what they said about Sudan. No, Somalia. We cannot review all the countries, but we're going to look at Somalia. It was very interesting, the justification. The government gives justification for each of these countries that have the ban. Now, when it comes to partial restrictions, the countries are Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. These restrictions apply to both immigrants and non-immigrant visas. Okay, so again, he talks about identity management or information sharing. All right, there you go. Okay, I found it. It's in section 1 of the proclamation. It says that publicly disclosing additional details on which I relied in making these determinations would cause damage to the national security of the United States. And I think they meant to write as many such details are classified, but they wrote and many such details are classified. So those are classified information. So we don't have access to everything that helped them make that decision, right? Now, the full suspension, they go on to, they pick country by country and give justification. Afghanistan, Burma, let's go on to, I mentioned I wanted to talk about, okay, one of the striking ones was Chad. Chad had a very striking visa overstay rate. For B1, B2 visa, Chad, almost 50%, meaning Chadians, when they come into the United States on a tourist visa, half of the people that come, almost half of the people, nearly half of the people, don't ever go back to Chad. And then there are student visas, the F, M, and J. You know, F is for studying, M for vocational, J, the exchange, you know, into the cultural exchange J1 visa. More than half, 55.64% for Chad. Okay, I believe that was the 2023 visa overstay rate, really high. Now, when you come to Equatorial Guinea, another striking percent. Equatorial Guinea also we're still on the full travel bans. Equatorial Guinea, B1, B2 visa overstay, 21.98%, and for students, 70.18%. Almost all the Equatorial Guinea students, when they come, most of them don't ever go back to their countries. Most of them don't ever go back to their country. So that also factored in there. We have Eritrea. If you look, Eritrea's B1, B2 overstay is just 20%, but the student is 55.43%. Eritrea also, the United States questioned its competency. The central authority which issues their passports or civil documents. You guys, your home, everybody's home country government, there must be a process for issuing a passport, because your passport is your nation's identity. I've said this before. Anybody that bears your passport, if they do anything wrong in today's world, it affects your entire country. And so if you are issuing passports, you have to be careful. These countries or nations have to be very careful who they issue passports to. Well, if they are your national, then you don't have a choice. You got to issue the passport. But where you will have some of the governments, they will issue passports to anybody that can pay money or bribe somebody or whatever, that's a problem. Because if a Nigerian bears a Ghana passport, or if a Ghanaian bears a Kenyan passport, and that person, let's say the Nigerian bears the Ghana passport and the person does anything wrong, it means the person is Ghanaian and it will affect the entire country. A Ghanaian bears a Kenyan passport, that Ghanaian does something wrong, that's a problem. So the US has put these sanctions in place to countries that lack competence in how they issue civil documents. Civil documents are documents like birth certificates, marriage certificates, death certificates. If anybody can go to your birth and death registry and get a birth certificate and claim they were born in Kolebu Teaching Hospital, or they were born in Abuja or wherever, without a centralized birth and death system where the country can verify that is this person truly born in our country or not, then the competency of your government to issue, or your central authority to issue these documents, is in question. Okay, they want to be able to see that you have an identity verification system. Your country should have an identity verification system. They should have national databases to confirm birth records, identity cards, citizenship. They should be able to verify that this person is who they say they are. All right. Okay. Now let's go on to, we won't touch on Haiti. Let me go on to, Iran was also very scathing. The blast that was issued against Iran, that they are a state-sponsored. Let me see here. My thing is covering it. I believe it says it's a state-sponsored terrorist. Okay, Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism. Iran regularly fails to cooperate with the United States government in identifying security risks, and is the source of significant terrorism around the world. It has historically failed to accept back its removable nationals. Now let's go to Somalia. My goodness. So Somalia, that was the very scathing, justification that was issued against them. Somalia lacks a competent or cooperative central authority for issuing passports or civil documents, and it does not have appropriate screening and vetting measures. Somalia stands apart from other countries in the degree to which its government lacks command and control of its territory, which greatly limits the effectiveness of its national capabilities in a variety of respects. A persistent terrorist threat also emanates from Somalia's territory. The United States has identified Somalia as a terrorist safe haven. Terrorists use regions of Somalia as safe havens from which they plan, facilitate, and conduct their operations. It means, all of it goes on and on. That was one of the most scathing justifications. Additionally, Somalia also has historically refused to accept back its removable nationals. Okay, now let's move on to Yemen also, they said they lack a competent and cooperative central authority for issuing passports or civil documents, doesn't have appropriate screening and vetting measures. Government, this was another very, very scathing one. The government of Yemen does not have physical control over its own territory. Really? Okay, that's the justification. All right, now let's move on to partial suspension, right? All these 12 countries I mentioned, full ban. But we're going to talk again about the scope of the ban. And I will tell you something that many of these discussions have failed to mention. We're going to go through the filters of this travel ban, and I'll explain it to you. Don't worry, we're going to understand it. And to drop your questions, we'll be jumping into questions very soon. Partial bans, we have 9 countries. Yes, no, I'm sorry, 7 countries, 19 in all, 12 full bans, 7 partial bans. So for Burundi, we have a partial ban. The partial bans, all of them are immigrants' visas are banned. Immigrants' visas means you are in your country, you are coming in as a green card holder, a lawful permanent resident, because your mom has or family has filed for you, or employment, or diversity visa, lottery, or some other ground, and you are coming into the United States as a lawful permanent resident. Ban immigrants' visas. So the government, I've said this again many times, the government, US government never issues green cards outside the United States. If you want a green card, come to the United States. If you are outside the United States and you are issued with an immigrant visa, it's a Form I-551 stamp in your passport. Once you enter and you are admitted as a lawful permanent resident, within about 3 weeks or 1 month, the USCIS will mail your green card to you at your US address, okay? So immigrant visas is the one that allows you to come in to get your green card. The non-immigrant visas are temporary visas. Now, all these countries, they are banned immigrant visas. They cannot get immigrant visas, and they also entry. It's the entry of immigrants and non-immigrants who are coming in on B1 business, B2 tourist, B1, B2, F for student, M for vocational studies, and then J for that J1 visa, cultural exchange visa, where they come and work. And in addition to that, it says that consular officers will also reduce the validity for any other non-immigrant visa. If you look at the reciprocity chart, I wanted to share that. We don't have too much time, but if you go to the reciprocity chart, all the countries around the world are there. And it tells you how many months or years each country can obtain for a visa. Okay, so for example, B1, B2 visa, Ghana, maximum is 5 years. Some other countries, they are able to give them 10 years of B1, B2 visa, multiple entry. So that reciprocity chart tells you the highest extent a consular officer can issue a visa for each country. So they'll reduce that. For other non-immigrant visas like H visa L, H visa L, O, P, all these other types of visas. So we have the first one, I believe we mentioned, is Burundi, partial suspension. We have Cuba, partial suspension. And okay, yeah, that's Cuba. Then we have Laos, also partial suspension. Then Sierra Leone, partial suspension. We have Togo. And then we have Turkmenistan and Venezuela. Okay. Now let's go to section 4 of the ban. We recorded a live video of this. Let's touch on a few key elements. Now, the scope of the ban is very important to understand who the ban covers. Okay. Now, if you look at how things, what the proclamation is saying, the proclamation is taking people through a filter or a funnel. At the highest level of the funnel is the 19 countries, okay? At the end of the funnel, we figure out who is really banned. And so you may realize that the ban actually seems much broader than it is in reality. The ban may not be as broad as you're assuming it is. So at the top of the funnel, we have 19 countries that have been selected. Nationals of all these 19 countries, imagine them at that top of the funnel. And all these 19 countries, not everybody in that country is banned, right? 19 countries. Now, the second thing you want to look at is that the ban, according to section 4, let me read it. It says, scope and implementation of suspension and limitations. A, scope, subject to the exceptions set forth in section B of this section and any exceptions made pursuant to subsection C and D of this section. The suspensions of and limitations on entry pursuant to sections 2 and 3. Section 2 covers the full ban countries. Section 3 covers the partial ban countries. Okay. Section 2 and 3 of this proclamation shall apply only to foreign nationals of the designated countries who satisfy these two conditions. The conditions are conjunctive, they are not disjunctive. What does it mean? It means that these two conditions, the criteria, must both coexist for the ban to be triggered. And so, even if you are from one of these 19 countries, if you are inside the United States, the ban doesn't apply to you. If you have a valid visa, the ban doesn't apply to you. Now, the conditions say the ban or this proclamation shall apply to these people. It applies to these people. It applies to the people who are outside the United States on the applicable effective date of this proclamation, which is 9th June 2025, and people who do not have visas, valid visas, on the applicable effective date of the proclamation, June 9, 2025. So this means that if you have an immigrant visa and you enter the United States on the effective date by, let's say, by 9th June, or maybe by 7th June, you enter the United States, or even by, let's say, by even 15th June or 20th June, you enter the United States. You are not outside the United States. The ban does not apply to you, logically. If you are outside the United States, the ban applies to you on the date. But being outside the United States is not enough for the ban to apply to you. You must be outside the United States, and you must also lack a valid visa. And so if you are outside the United States, even on in July or on July 4th or 5th, and you have a valid visa, according to Section 4, the ban should not apply to you. If you do a strict textual reading, you are doing an interpretation of what the Section 4 means. These two things must coexist. It means that for the ban to apply to you, you must be outside and you must lack a valid US visa. If even one of these conditions is not present, the ban does not apply to you. So if you are from Libya, I believe Libya is one of the countries, or let's say Somalia, and you are outside the United States by June 10th, and you have a valid immigrant visa, this ban should not apply to you. Now let's go to the exceptions, right? The second panel is the scope. First panel, the first part of the panel is 19 countries. Now we narrow down. It now comes again to people who are outside and don't have valid visas. Now you see the scope of the ban has already reduced. And then there's another scope of the ban. There are exceptions. The ban doesn't apply to, I believe it's about 14 people, 14 groups of people, wide group of, you can group them into about 4, but if you break them down, about 14. Let's go through all of them. First one, it doesn't apply to green card holders, lawful permanent residents. It doesn't apply to dual nationals. I'm sorry. So for example, if you are from, let's say you are from Burundi and you have a B2 visa, right? But you are also, let's say, you're from Burundi, you have a B2 visa, you are also a citizen of Nigeria. Because Nigeria is not banned, you can use your Nigerian passport to get a US visa and enter the United States. So you must, if you have, you must be from a country that is not banned and you are traveling on the passport of that country that is not designated. You cannot say that, I have the US visa in the banned country, I have a Nigerian passport, and so can I do a cross-chargeability and use that to travel? No, you should be traveling on the passport. issued by a country that is not designated. If you are coming into the United States, traveling on a valid non-immigrant visa in diplomat visas, you're working with world organizations, G visas, NATO, you're coming in on a C visa, like the transit visas. These people, you are foreign nationals coming in on these type of visas. Even if you are from these countries, you are not banned. I mean, the 19 countries, these people are not banned. So if you are from, let me give the names of the countries specifically so that we can make sure we're all on the same page. Let's pick Chad, full country ban. You are from Chad, but you have an A1 visa and you are coming into the United States, you are exempt from this ban. Okay, let's say Libya, you're coming into the United States, coming to work on an A2 visa as a diplomat, you are coming to work in your country's embassy. You are not banned because you have that valid non-immigrant visa in these classifications. Then let's move on to the fourth exemption. Any athletes, member of an athletic team, including coaches, if you are performing in a necessary support role, immediate relatives traveling for World Cup, Olympics, other major sporting events determined by the Secretary of State. Number 5, immediate family immigrant visas. If you are coming in on an IR1 visa, CR1, IR2, CR2, IR5, these are, for example, IR1 is immediate relative 1. Then we have conditional residence, spouse, IR1 is spouse of a US citizen, conditional resident. So the IR1 people, that they are the people that get 10-year green cards because they've been married for example, for more than 2 years at the time their cases are approved. CR1, they've been married for less than 2 years, so they have the conditional resident card or green card, right? So that means that they have just 2 years green card. And you have all these categories, and you have clear and convincing evidence of identity and family relationships. I'm trying to pull up the let's look at the visa codes. Let me give you the specific visa codes for each. So IR1 is the spouse of a US citizen. Then we have IR2 is the child of a US citizen. And then we have, let's go to IR5. We have the parent of a US citizen, at least 21 years of age. And then, then the CR1, spouse of a US citizen, conditional status. CR2 is a child of a US citizen, conditional status. Okay. Adoptions. IR3 is the orphan adopted abroad by US citizen. IR4, orphan to be adopted in the United States by US citizen. IH4, adopted abroad under Hague Convention in the United States. Then IH3, child adopted abroad by US citizen under the Hague Convention. Then Afghan, number 7, these people are all exempt from the ban. So even if you fall within the scope, you are in the 19 countries, you have an Afghan special immigrant visa, you're not banned. Special immigrant visas for US government employees, not banned. Immigrant visas for ethnic and religious minorities facing persecution in Iran, they are exempt from the ban. And then they will also look at these exceptions using, is it in the best interest of the United States? They'll look at a case-by-case, Attorney General, Secretary of State, if traveling will advance a critical national interest, then you are not banned. Now, for people who are also individuals granted asylum, they are not banned from the United States, even if they're from these countries. Refugees admitted to the United States, individuals who are granted withholding of removal under CAT. And again, guys, note that the proclamation, it doesn't limit the ability of these people, if you're from one of these 19 countries, to seek asylum or refugee status in the United States, or withholding of removal or protection under CAT. you can still seek that. Okay, now, so as we were saying, the government allows, some exception to be carved in the interest of the United States. They'll make case by case exception if travel will advance a critical national interest. So, for example, if you are coming here to participate in a criminal proceeding, you are a witness, then you are not banned. You can be allowed to come in. Now, the ban is not final. Okay, it's not final. The ban is not final. There will be adjustments made. Section 5. There's going to be a 30-day review after the ban has been, after the issuance of the ban. There's a 30-day review. After 30 days, the government is going to be reviewing whether they should modify. I'm sorry, within 90 days, 90, not 30, 90 days, within 90 days, 3 months, within 90 days of the date of the proclamation. So 90 days from June 9th, 2025, the Secretary of State with the AG, Secretary of Homeland Security, Director of National Intelligence, they're going to review and submit a report to President Trump to describe the assessment and recommend whether any suspension and limitation should they stop it? Should they continue? Should they modify it? Should they supplement it? They will make that analysis. And then when it comes to after 90 days, they'll do that analysis. Then after 180 days, every 180 days thereafter. So after 90 days, 3 months, they'll do the assessment. Then 180 days after that 90 days, and every 180 days, every 6 months, they'll be doing the review. If you deserve to be added, they'll add you. If you deserve to be struck off the list, they'll strike you off the list. All right, we're almost at the end. We talked about enforcement. Yeah, they're going to be working with the Department of State to the visa issuance, CBP, to allow certain people to enter the US or not. There's likely going to be extra scrutiny at airports, especially if you're from one of these countries, right? Now, they say also that Section 6C, no immigrant or non-immigrant visa issued before this date shall be revoked. So we already spoke about that doesn't limit asylum, and the effective date is 12:01 a.m. EDT on Monday, June 9th. Is about to come into, go into effect. So we just have the weekend. All right. Okay. Let's go back. Oh my gosh. I wanted us to talk about courthouse arrests, but it looks like we've run out of time. I'm going to see if we can take a few questions before we can hop off. Okay, so Umar says, talk about Chad and their winner of lottery. Let's look at Chad where it falls. I believe, was it a total ban for Chad? Let me take a look again here. I believe, yes, Chad does have a total ban. So if you have a total ban, there's not going to be any entry of immigrant visas. If you have an immigrant visa, you cannot enter after the effective date. And so if you win the visa lottery, who's even going to issue that immigrant visa to you? They're likely going to stop processing for these countries, even if you win, because they will have to issue with an immigrant visa. And there's a ban, a 90-day ban. Okay, so the duration of the ban is for 90 days. So you got to talk to your home country government, see if they can cooperate. And then perhaps after 90, within this time, after 90 days, the ban could be lifted, and that could help. So H-Type says, not C mentioned K1 visa. Yes, K1 visa is not mentioned, but it depends on where you're from, right? Because when it comes to K1 visas, one interesting thing about a K1 visa is that K1 visas are technically described by the US, by US immigration as a non-immigrant visa, but it's in essence an immigrant visa. It's categorized as a non-immigrant visa because when you even are trying to book after your K1 petition is approved, you're trying to even set up an appointment, it goes under non-immigrant visa appointment, right? Because you're coming in single entry, within 90 days, you have to get married to your US citizen spouse, and then you can apply for a green card. So it's always, is it a non-immigrant? Is it an immigrant visa? They usually it's not very clear what category they put K1 in, but it's viewed as a non-immigrant visa, even though inherently the K1 is an immigrant visa. So if you are in a full ban country, then K1 visa, they are not going to issue that visa to you because obviously the proclamation has banned the entry, and by extension, the embassies are likely not going to be issuing these things to you guys. I mean, if you are from a country that has a full ban and you're applying for K1, that is likely not going to happen. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, they'll limit the entry. So it means that even if you're able to get the visa somehow, that entry is limited. You're not going to be allowed to come into the United States. Okay, let me see if we have any question on. Let me see if we have any question on Instagram. Let's see if we have questions. Guys, if you can still hear me, you've enjoyed the session, drop USA, and then I can pick your question before we round off or we log off. Drop USA in the chat box. Let me make sure you guys can still hear me. Nothing has gone wrong. And if you've enjoyed this session as well, you can drop USA or any emoji. I'm looking on Instagram to see if we can get any question from here. Let's see here. Kay Spatola says, would you recommend that I transfer my CR interview from Accra to Burkina Faso? I cannot advise on that without knowing more. We actually just finished winning a case where one of our clients had actually transferred, and the consular officer the client went and met at that other African country was so annoyed and said, these Ghanaians, you really enjoy transferring your cases to circumvent lengthy wait times. And the officer started they put him in admin processing and started digging into his case. And they came up with about 3 fraud allegations against him. And during the interview, he said the officer told him, why did you transfer your case? You're trying to circumvent lengthy wait time, and was visibly annoyed with him. So, that transfer, it depends on your justification. I can't give you that advice without knowing why you want to transfer. And the reason they don't like it is that people transfer their cases, they'll go and get all these, resident permits and a whole bunch of things I don't want to go into here, but it has come to their attention. So you want to be careful. People do it successfully, all right, but you may want to be careful with that. Forum Anchor says, you help with F1 to EB1 or EB2 NIW. We absolutely do. We handle all US immigration cases, and we work with clients in all 50 states and around the world in all US immigration matters. So it doesn't matter where you are, we can assist you. Okay, so, question on TikTok says, if someone who was under TPS from Haiti still applies for asylum, I'm not sure what you are asking specifically, but the proclamation says that this travel ban doesn't stop anybody from applying for asylum. You still have the right to apply for asylum. I believe it's right here under enforcement, section 6D of the proclamation. It shouldn't apply to somebody who So it says section 6D, the second paragraph. Nothing in this proclamation shall be construed to limit the ability of an individual to seek asylum, refugee status without removal, or cut consistent with the laws of the United States. So if you're eligible, you can absolutely apply for asylum, speak with an attorney. We're here to help. If you need our help, we can review your case and give you the necessary advice, okay? All right, we're almost out of time now. Atamirat Aganyabzov said, "Is ban affects to Turkmenistan citizens, DV lottery 2026 winners." But so that's too early to tell, right? Because DV lottery 2026, they'll start the processing from fiscal year, October 2025 all the way through to September 1st, October 2025 all the way through to September 30th, 2026. And this ban, this Trump ban is there for 90 days, and then there's going to be the review. And then after that, thereafter, every 180 days, 6 months thereafter. So, depends on your country. If hopefully your country complies with what the government needs them to do, then within 90 days, you may not be banned anymore. You may be taking up the list, right? And Turkmenistan, it applied to immigrant visas and non-immigrant visas. So DV lottery, if you win, you get an immigrant visa. And so if nothing changes by the time your rank number is current under the visa bulletin for the visa lottery, then you will not be allowed to process your visa or even get a visa issued. But we'll see how things evolve from here. Kwame, that's an interesting question. We've run out of time. Please set up an appointment with us, and we can take a look at this. But generally, I would say that it's the passport that is the decisive factor, right? Well, let me just read it. Let's just. Kwame Banodo says, Mr. Boaje, please, I booked an appointment in Togo for my F1 visa interview in August, but I'm from Ghana. Can this partial ban on Togo affect the outcome of my interview? Sorry, TikTok is... Okay. All right, we're back on TikTok. Can this affect? Let me show you this from the proclamation. Okay, guys, we're going to hop up very soon. Please drop USCIS if you guys can hear me. You've enjoyed the session, and you want to encourage us to do more. Now, if you look at the exceptions, right, under section 4B for the scope, which covers the scope, you look at section 4BII, and we're going to infer from this, any dual national of a country designated under section 2 and 3 of this proclamation, when the individual is traveling on a passport issued by a country not so designated, these people are exempt. The point is that the passport or the authority or the country that issues your passport is the decisive factor. So if you are holding a Ghana passport, the location where you are going to get a visa from should not affect you. Togo is banned, but you don't have a Togo passport. You have a Ghana passport, which is not banned. So that should not affect you. Now, as to, whether you can continue to book in those particular embassies, likely they're going to limit availability of appointments because, well, there are some exceptions, right? People who are coming in on NATO visas, C visas, those people, they are going to continue processing them. IR3 visas, IR1 visas, all these people in the banned countries, they are still going to process them. The issue is just for the other visa categories not captured in the ban. And so you just being in that location, I don't believe that should affect you. Okay, all right, guys. If you found this helpful, again, please just drop us a thumbs up, share our video, like us across social media, drop us, comments, and just support the work we're doing. Leave us great reviews so that especially for those who have had their questions answered, you found it helpful. That's a good way on Google to leave us a review to let the world know that you will recommend us. All right, guys, today we've exceeded our time, but we just had to answer the final question. I hope you all found this helpful. I'll see you guys in our, in our live video session, hopefully next week. And of course, during the week on our short videos that we share. Don't forget to like, comment, and share when you see our posts, and you'll encourage us to do more. Okay, take care, guys. You need any help, contact us on the number on the screen, 802-780-0564. If you're outside the United States, you can call us on WhatsApp. You can email us also. And we'll be happy to assist. Oh, what did I? Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Why did I put? I'm sorry. I was trying to put our email there, but that wasn't accurate. All right, guys. So take care. I'll see you soon in our next live session next week, Friday, 1 p.m. Hopefully, if God gives us life, we'll be right here. Okay. Take care, everyone. Bye. Thank you for joining.